If you're happy and you know it, shake your meds. If you're happy and you know it, shake your meds. If you're happy and you know it, what medication combination are you on? Because that really does make all the difference. I'm just saying. So, while I was in the hospital, I got a chance to meet a whole lot of people. I mean, you know, a hospital these days, the psych ward especially, are packed. So you get a chance to make a lot of good connections and meet new people. So while I was there on Monday, because I got there that Monday, so that Monday when I first got there, I met Bree, which is short for Brittany, and she was the daughter of a wealthy oil tycoon. Bree had the life. Like, she had fancy cars. She had lived in a big old mansion. She was amazing. Like, I really wanted her life. Like, you know, she was just all about that high society socialite life. You know, and you know, I guess she was just in there because she, you know, got depressed often. And we oftentimes think, why is it that rich people are getting depressed? Well, maybe it's because they, you know, money isn't everything, obviously. But she was so sweet, and I just couldn't fathom why she was in the hospital. But you know, she was dealing with depression, and anxiety, and you know, sometimes self-harmed. So you know, her father checked her in. You know, then there was Carl, who was older black man. You know, he drove a bus for many years before retiring. He had a son who just kind of despised him because his son wanted to have a better life than being a bus driver. A better life, like, I don't know what that means. I just kind of felt sorry for Carl because he seemed like such a great guy. He was so sweet, and all he wanted to do was really just spend time with his son and his new granddaughter that his son didn't really get a chance to let him see. And it was kind of heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. And likewise, Carl fell into a serious depression after retiring and after his son moving away and not really wanting to speak to him. So, you know, he, you know, had tried to commit suicide, and he was in there. Then I met Diana. Diana was a cold stone racist. Like literally, she had one more time to make a racist or offensive joke toward me, and I swear no amount of medicine in the world was going to allow me to not strangle her. Seriously. Diana had issues. Diana just couldn't stand nothing black, nothing Hispanic. Like, it was horrible. I mean, literally, Carl was going to straight punch her in her face, and Carl was about 65. He drank heavily, so he really didn't give a damn. So she was on her way out the door. She had one more time with both me and Carl. Me and Carl had a whole conversation about this chick because I was like, listen, Carl, if she say one more thing, I'ma just smack her and you follow up with a kick. We were in agreement with that. And then there was Elaine. Elaine was about a middle-aged, she was middle-aged, you know, white woman, and she was really quiet. Like, she was really dealing with some serious emotional issues and some serious trauma. And you know, I didn't really get a chance to know Elaine too well, because she was always so kind of just, she was just so mauled over from the electric shock therapy treatment. And I really just got a chance to know all of Elaine's personalities and not really her. Like, so I really did wish I got a chance to know Elaine, but you know, Carl, Bree, and Diana were cool. I mean, they were all in Elaine's head, but they were cool nonetheless. So yeah, that happened. want to welcome you guys to another episode of Did You Take Your Meds Today? No, really. Did you? Because today we're going to be talking about taking your medication properly and consistently. You know, now we've been diagnosed. We know what's going on. The doctor has now prescribed us different types of medications, and now we need to discuss why it's important to keep up with those medications, why it's important for us to make sure that we maintain consistency when taking our medication. This is going to be a two-part vlog. So next week we're going to get into to medicate or to not medicate, and the pros and cons to taking medication. So today we're just going to discuss a little bit about why it's very important for us to really to continue in the mental health community or mental illness community. Why it's very important for us to kind of keep on our medication. So, as you saw in the little opening act there, when I went to the hospital when I got checked in and stayed for that week, I got a chance to meet several different people, and most of these people was in one person. And the thing about that is, when you're dealing with someone who's dealing with multiple personalities, these personalities are real to them, and each of them have their own individuality. Each of them had their own background story, and when I tell you that I spoke to each one of those individuals as if they were Diana, Bree, and Carl, I promise you I had conversations with Diana, Bree, and Carl, and sometimes all at the same time. It was a group conversation, and it was the best conversations that I had during my week there. And then she got her electric shock therapy, and they kind of were all going. And I was left with Elaine. And Elaine, you know, after the ETC was kind of, you know, not as fun. But anyway, you think about how do people, or at least I thought about, how does one get to that point? How do they get to the space of, you know, being in the hospital? Because this wasn't her first time in the hospital. While it was my first time there, it wasn't Elaine's first time there, and it wasn't a lot of the people that I came in contact with at the hospital. It wasn't their first time there. And in my mind, I'm like, how do you guys keep coming in and out of the hospital? Well, it's because at some point they felt better once they were on medication, and then once they began to feel better, they stopped taking their meds because they thought they no longer needed them. That is a common misconception amongst the mental illness community. Once we get our medications inside of us and we begin to feel better, the scales are lifted or are taken from our eyes, and the day looks brighter, we're no longer depressed, we begin to feel that, okay, we don't need the medication no more. It's done what it was supposed to do. No. It's done what it was supposed to do, and it's going to continue to do what it needs to do in order for you not to get back to that space of depression or having bipolar episodes, or having manic episodes, or having the split personalities or the schizophrenia. That's what takes place. This is why the medication is so important to make sure, and this is why it's so important for us to continue on our regimen daily and consistently. So for a couple of seconds, let's just talk about the medication portion of it. So when the doctor prescribes you a medication, first you must understand that there is a spectrum that you fall on when it comes with mental illness. Some people can live daily, healthy, normal lives without medication, but some people cannot, and it really does depend on the spectrum that you fall on. The thing about dealing with medication and dealing with being consistent in your medication really falls in the factor that when you're on a spectrum and you need to have meds in your system, those medications help to prevent any episodes from coming along. You can't just stop when you feel better, because then what's happening is you're messing up the brain chemistry, and you are confusing your brain, you're confusing your mind, you're confusing your body. So when your body gets used to being on something or having a certain chemical in its body, and then you just stop, then what's happening is now everything gets confused. And now you're like, oh my God, or your body is like, okay, what do we do next? What do we do next? So now it begins to kind of break down a little bit. Now you're starting to feel a little bit lethargic. Now you're having those brain tremors that they talk about. Look it up. It's ridiculous. It's like Venus and Serena are playing table tennis with your brain. That's literally how it feels. You're having uncontrollable spasms of your body. This is what happens when you just stop your medication. You have all of these weird, crazy side effects that come along. You have all these weird, crazy little things that's taking place in your brain and inside of your body, because now your body is trying to figure out what it's missing and how it can grab back that chemical or that balance that it needs in order to function at 100% capacity. So it's very important that you don't just stop taking your medication. It's very important that if you feel that you don't want to be on medication anymore, or you feel like your dosage needs to be adjusted, that you talk to your physician and that you and your physician come up with a plan to wean you off the medication. So that is very important. Also, when you're taking your meds, it is important for you to make sure that you're taking them consistently. And that means if you're supposed to take your medication every single day, take your medicine every single day. If you take it at a certain time, like for me, I take 450 milligrams twice a day of lithium. I take it in the morning and I take it at night. So I chose to take it when I get up in the morning before I take the kids to school, which is around 7 a.m. And then at night just before I go to bed, which is normally around between like 9:30 and 10 p.m. And I try to take it around the same time every day, because my body is beginning to become regimented because it knows that it is supposed to have this particular substance at this time and at that time. And I try to make sure that I stay on that, because I want to make sure that I'm doing as much as I can to keep my body and my brain balanced. The thing about taking your medicine and making sure that you are consistent with it plays a big part in your daily habits, your daily life. Your sleeping habits can become affected when you aren't doing something consistently. Your eating habits become affected when you're not taking your medication consistently and properly. Your chemical balance starts to get off center when you're not taking it properly and consistently. A lot of things take place in your mental state and in your body, in your physical body, that lets you know, okay, listen, you have to get back to this, and we need for you to continue to do this in order for us to be a whole and for us to operate mind, body, and spirit. One of the things, like I said before earlier, is a lot of these people end up being in a hospital as a revolving door because they feel better and then they stop taking their medications. You can't do that, because the thing is, the medication is what's making you feel better. So when you stop it, yes, your brain gets out of whack, and it's like, okay, we don't feel better anymore. So you have to make sure that you stick with your plan. And if for whatever reason, and I can't stress this enough, if for whatever reason you don't like the medication, or something's not feeling good, or you don't feel like yourself, or you feel like you are drained, or you feel like, whatever, you talk to your physician. You really have to talk to your physician. You cannot just make a corporate decision and just say, hey, this is just what we're going to do. This is just what I'm going to do. I'm not taking it. It really, it opens the door for a psychotic break. And it may not happen the first day that you stop taking your medication. It may not happen 2 weeks after you stop taking your medication. It can happen as far down the line as 6 months when you finally have a break. So the effects of you not taking your medicine can be seen. It can show itself later on down the line. It does not have to be right away. I explained to you guys last week that there was a point where I just stopped taking my medication, And I had begun to feel better, which is what medicine is designed to do: help you to make you feel better, help you to make you feel more like yourself. And that's what was taking place. I felt more like myself. I was feeling better. I decided that I don't need the medication any longer. I decided, because I'm a doctor, right, that I didn't need the medication anymore, and that I was good to go. So I weaned myself off the medication. I looked online, found different ways that I can wean myself off and things of that nature. So I weaned myself off. It wasn't until 6 months later, which would have brought us to March of 2015. It wasn't until 6 months later where I began to feel the effects of my decision of no longer taking my medication. I used to like to get dressed for work. Even though my place of employment at the time was a place where you could dress down, I got dressed. I took pride in how I look, and I love fashion. I love to get dressed. Well, when I started to feel the effects of my decision of not to no longer take medication, that began to express itself outwardly, and I traded in my skirts for sweatpants and sneakers, my heels for sneakers, my blouses and my embellished necklaces for hoodies and scarves. Like, it was so bad. I came in looking like Lil Brother, the real talk, and just looking so unput together, just looking wrinkled and a mess. That's because inwardly, what was going on with me inwardly was being manifested outwardly. I didn't feel like getting dressed. I didn't feel like putting an effort into anything. So therefore, it started to reveal itself in my clothing and how I address people. I began to get into conflicts at my job. I began to get into conflicts with my friends. I began to get in conflicts with my family and at home. I probably had one more time to yell or try to throw my hands up at my husband, and that was going to probably be the end of my life. My husband is 6'5", 360. He is a gentle giant. He is a manly man, and he loves himself some me. But I think I had one more time to kind of like throw my hands up at him, and he was going to throw a hand back. And now, if you can only see what that looks like in real life, that hit wasn't going to knock me out cold. That was going to knock me out dead. Like, it was going to be done. That's it. The headlines was going to be bad. But I began to recognize that I needed help. I saw myself going down the same slippery slope that I had gone down that a couple of weeks just before I had to be admitted into the hospital. And I knew that was the place that I never wanted to be at again. So I, took a medical leave of absence from my job for about 30 to 35 days. And I checked myself into an intensive outpatient treatment program. So, while I wasn't in the hospital, I had to go there every single day in order to get myself back on track. And I had to start back up with my medication. So, a lot of times what happens is when people begin to feel the same way, sometimes they don't act fast enough to get themselves into an inpatient or intensive outpatient treatment, or they don't get themselves back into a hospital. They let it progress. And this is how psychotic breaks expand and get worse and just becomes something that cannot be controlled, and it's a snowball effect, So it's very important that you're vigilant, and that you are careful, and that you are serious about your medication, because you don't want to be back into that space. If any of you have ever been to the hospital, you know that you don't want to be there, because your life is not your own. You have to do what they tell you to do and when they tell you to do it, and you can't leave until you start to show some progression. And that is not a fun place to be in. So, you want to be very, be consistent. And you want to be serious about your medicine, because it's a serious thing. And again, besides all the physical side effects that we talked about, the mental side effects alone are it's too much to handle. If you don't like being in the space of depression, it's just too much. It's too much. And for the normies, that's the advice and the tips for the mental health my mental health brothers and sisters, or my mental illness brothers and sisters. For the normies, how can you help? You can help by making sure that your family or friend is being consistent with their upkeep daily. Again, as I told you, you don't want to go directly into, did you take your meds, or are you on your medication? You don't want to go directly into that. You want to go into making sure that they are healthy, mind, body, and spirit as one, as a whole. So, hey, how's everything going? Are you checking in with your therapist? Are you checking in with your doctor? How's your sleeping habits going? How are you eating? How's everything going at work? By you asking all these questions that encompasses everything about them, you're going to get a lot of good information to figure out whether or not if they are taking their medication properly. And because you're going to start to hear the signs, like, oh, I'm not sleeping. Okay, so he or she is experiencing insomnia. Why? Or I'm sleeping all the time. Okay, they're sleeping often or a lot. They can't seem to get it together. Why? Or I'm not eating. Why? So now those are giving you the questions that you need, and giving you you're asking the questions, and it's giving you the answers that you need to kind of say, okay, maybe we should get in contact with your doctor, or maybe you should try this, or maybe you should do that. But it gives them an opportunity to feel like a complete person, and not just feel like it's just about their medication, because it's a whole thing too. It's a whole person. And then one of the things I can say as far as, tips on making sure that you do take your medication, that maybe, sometimes we just forget, or you just need a reminder. If that's the case, then mostly everybody in America has a cell phone. If you don't have a cell phone, you got an alarm clock. If you don't have an alarm clock, you got a TV, and your TV 9 times out of 10 has an alarm on it. And if you don't have any of those, call your mama. Your mama will call you twice a day if you tell her to. Trust me, but I'm sure she will. She'll keep you on the phone for 45 minutes at that. Set an alarm for in the morning. Set an alarm for in the evening, for the time that you're supposed to take your medication. I'm going to reminder in your phone, and that way it'll let you know it's time to take your medication. You won't forget. And in that way, it'll happen. And if you know you're going to be out that day, or you're not going to be home, take a pill with you. Put it in your pocket, put it in your pocketbook, do whatever. But make sure that you are vigilant and consistent about your mental health, and making sure that it is intact. And if you need to do that by taking your medication along with you, then do that. I do that all the time when I'm going over my bestie's house, or somewhere, and I know I'm gonna be there all night because I'm gonna be out having fun. I take my medication with me so I can remember to take it. So guys, that's it for this particular part of the episode, and I hope that those tips and some of that information helped you. Normies, I hope you got something good out of this as well. Listen, hey guys, that's it for this episode of Did You Take Your Meds Today? Make sure you join us next Tuesday for part 2, when we talk about to medicate or not to medicate. You can also hit me up on social media until then at Lithium Logz with the Z on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and of course here on YouTube. Until then, make sure you take your medication. Why? Because your family and your friends will thank you. Have a great week, guys.